Hi there, so we'll be taking a look at how Nilah's abilities work and how they synergize with different items. So first of all, your AOE auto attacks after you've queued only proc the on-hit effects on the main target. So you can see here that I'm getting the Nashor's damage on this one and not on this one. The next one is spell effects. Spell effects proc on the secondary targets, but not on the main target. So if we use this, you see the Andres is not getting applied again, and I'm not getting tier stacks. But if I proc it here, and then I attack this one, the Leandris is getting applied again, and we get a tier stack per auto that hits a secondary target. Next up, I'll be demonstrating that Infinity Edge increased crit damage doesn't work on Q. So we see the crit indicator here when you Q. But if we try to calculate it, so we see the 344 damage here with an Infinity Edge. And now we sell this and replace it with Navori. Then we buy one of these because it built into the Navori, so we lost it. And then we buy a longsword, so we have the same amount of AD. And it still deals 344 damage. So the Q in itself isn't a crit, but the reason it has the crit indicator is probably that the scaling increases, or the damage overall just increases by your crit chance. Next up, we'll be taking a look at increased range. So for instance, rapid fire cannon increases your range. I assume this would also go for lethal tempo. It doesn't seem to increase the range of your cone attack. So if we hit this one, and then I hit the one behind. Okay, there it took damage. Give me a second. Right, so let's try again. I got too close to them. We tried to approach from the bottom here. In which case this one's obviously closer, so the AOE should hit it. But I target this one, and the AOE only hits the one behind and not the forward. Or rather, the AOE doesn't hit anything, it's just the auto that hits. Right, so next up is Galeforce. You can cast Galeforce while you're casting R, but you cannot cast R while you're casting Galeforce. Regarding your E, it sort of works the same way. So you can Galeforce while you're using E, but not while you can't E while you're using Galeforce. You have to wait just till the end of it. Becomes a bit more obvious if I cancel it in the middle here. With Rocketbelt, it seems you can't cancel the dash, but it still sort of cancels E, so it's kind of hard to describe. So we completed the dash, but our E didn't deal any damage, and the Rocketbelt rockets flew the opposite way. On the other end, we have Prowlers. So you can't cast Prowlers while you're casting R. It just casts after you're done. But you can cast R while you're casting Prowlers. And it casts just midair. Next up is Hydra. So Ravenous Hydra procs on every hit of the AoE. But Tiamat and Titanic Hydra only proc on the main target since they're on hits, which I explained earlier. So regarding items like Stridebreaker and Goredrinker that build from Ironspike Whip, as well as Ironspike Whip itself, you cannot cast them while you're Eing. They'll be cast at the end of your E. And you have to watch out, because if you cast them right as you E, so right before you E, it actually turns out they get cancelled but still go on cooldown. I can't use it. And even though I wasn't range, it didn't take any damage either. So if you use stasis in your ultimate, it keeps going. You can also use W and stasis, which is pretty pointless. Although I'd need a human teammate to test whether people can still walk through you and get the effect, so allies, and that might be possible. So I guess that could be a rare use case if you're building into a GA, for instance, with Stopwatch. You also cannot cast stasis while you're Eing. It'll wait till the end of it. you can see I don't get the hourglass effect until I reach the end of my dash. If you use your ultimate and then die in Guardian Angel, your ultimate keeps going. But your W gets cancelled. Oh, wait, never mind. I actually can't really show that since they... Okay, so they hotfixed her W, and now it actually dodges tower shots. But her W will get cancelled if you die while you're casting it, even though you have GA. So Black Cleaver is not much of an interaction, but it's nice to know that your ultimate hits 5 times, and thus gives 5 stacks of Black Cleaver to every target hit. One thing to note about healing items is that the increased healing from your passive is from allies, so not from yourself. So they shouldn't really have any special interactions with her. Now this one might be a bug, I'm not quite sure, but your Q applies lifesteal. So you can see we don't heal anything from the Q passive here because I don't have any crit, yet the Q still heals us because I have Vampiric Scepter. And if I delete these, we lose the healing. You can also damage turrets with Q, which it doesn't say anything about either. So in some ways it sort of acts like an auto attack, even though it doesn't proc on hits. And I'm just gonna show for a second that it really doesn't proc on hits at all. You can see the Nashers doesn't go off here. Next up we'll be taking a look at her E. So her E can dash through walls even though you're not targeting someone who's over a wall. But let's start with showing this. So you can obviously dash over a wall by targeting an enemy over a wall. But here, you can also dash over this way, just like Yasuo for instance. But it is much shorter than you would expect. So here it fails, even though we obviously have enough range to do it. So you have to be extremely close to get over the wall. You can also target allies, but the same thing goes. You have to be super close to go over walls. See, even though we are standing extremely close already, it already also failed there. You cannot in general cast things while you're Eing, as we also saw with some of the items, except the special Q of course. So ER also just releases R at the end. And EW seems to also just not cast the W, unless you cast it near the end, in which case it's cast at the end. Everfrost has the same interaction as Ironspike Whip, so if you Everfrost and then E, the Everfrost is cancelled. And if you E first, the Everfrost is casted at the end. Next up about the E is one last item interaction, which is how the Navori reduces the cooldown on your E since it has multiple charges. So it actually reduces based on how much is remaining cooldown on the current charge you're at. So if we use it here, oh sorry, I have the cooldown reset on. If we use it, the indicator is actually bugged, but you will see that it comes back in much less than 18 seconds. And there we got it. If we use both, the indicator isn't bugged, but it also doesn't come back with like a calculation that there's 2 stacks. So even though there's only 1 second remaining on the first stack cooldown, it only reduces it by 0.2 or something like that, rather than considering that there's an entire charge after that as part of the cooldown. Right, so that's it for this video. I hope you learned some things about the new champ, and I really hope that you enjoy Nilah.